TFL EV is brought to you by Flow Charger, maker of reliable, high-quality charging stations for your electric vehicle.
Hey everybody, Tommy coming at you from just outside of Stuttgart, Germany, where Mercedes has flown me out to check out this, the brand new Mercedes-Benz e-Sprinter, the fully electric Mercedes Sprinter van. And in this video, we are talking about why this vehicle is so significant for Mercedes-Benz, all of the features on the outside, the inside, and what makes it tick. Now, the fully electric Sprinter has been on sale here in Europe for a few years, but it's coming to the States starting in the middle of 2023, and it's actually assembled in 3 locations, 2 locations in Germany, and then 1 location in the US in Charleston, which is pretty cool. Now, this Sprinter is coming to the States in 1 length configuration and 1 height configuration to start out with, a 170-inch wheelbase with the high roof design. The Mercedes e-Sprinter will come in 2 battery configurations for the US, an 81 kilowatt hour and a 113 kilowatt hour battery pack. Now, this battery is significantly bigger in both configurations compared to the Ford Electric Transit, this vehicle's chief competitor, that has roughly a 67 kilowatt hour battery pack. And for reference, that vehicle goes about 126 miles on a single charge, depending on configuration. Now, we don't know the official range numbers for the Mercedes-Benz e-Sprinter as of this filming, but Mercedes says they are targeting 400 kilometers on a single charge on the WLTP cycle. That's right around 248 miles. But again, the EPA cycle is typically a little bit more aggressive, so figure a little bit less than that in the real world. Now, this is exciting to me because that is significantly more than that 120 or so miles that you get with the Ford. This is also an LFP battery pack supplied by CATL. Now, that means that this is a lithium iron phosphate battery, which is supposed to be better for the environment than a typical lithium ion battery because it doesn't contain nickel or cobalt, which are 2 very harmful minerals to mine. Now, the charging port for the Mercedes-Benz e-Sprinter is located in the nose, which is a fantastic thing in my opinion, especially for such a large vehicle. You don't want to be having to back up to a charging station. This is a really smart idea. Now, to access a charging port, you push in on the 3-pointed star, it pops out, and now you can see this vehicle is both compatible with AC and DC charging. The AC charging rate, 9.6 kilowatts, and the peak DC charging rate depends on the model, but there's one with a 50 kilowatt charging capacity and one with a 115 kilowatt charging capacity. If you get the faster of the 2 charging vans, they say a 10 to 80% charge in right around 42 minutes, which is pretty decent. Keep in mind that this is a vehicle really intended for shorter deliveries, around town deliveries, and I suspect not a lot of folks driving this are going to be charging it at a DC charger on a regular basis. The e-Sprinter has 488 cubic feet worth of capacity. You can see this one is the cargo model because it will launch exclusively as the cargo model, although I'm told we'll see different variants coming at a later point. Now, payload capacity, a max of about 2,600 pounds worth of payload capacity, which is some 1,000 to 1,200 pounds less than the gasoline model. So if you're looking to haul really heavy, the gasoline model is probably going to be a little bit better for your needs. And of course, then you get the option for the dually gasoline models, which will haul 5,000–6,000 pounds plus. Just like the exterior of the electric Sprinter, the inside is pretty similar from a design and functionality standpoint. So available here, we have a 10.25-inch screen, and this is running the latest and greatest of MBUX software. So this is a fantastic system if you've never used it. Now, the e-Sprinter does have some changes. There's an e-Sprinter page where you can do stuff like change the charging state of charge max. You can do pre-climate conditioning. This also has the functionality in the navigation to kind of show you via what the Germans call the range potato as to how far this vehicle will go on the current charge. And it's called the potato, right, because it'll actually shift and change its kind of shape. Now, this MBUX system is great. It also has CarPlay, Android Auto, that kind of thing if you want to use it. Now, this vehicle also has your climate control down here. You can get an optional high-powered AC system depending on your use case. There's also an optional heated windshield, which is what this one has. This one also has the heated seats, but pretty similar to what you'd find in the gasoline Sprinter in here. Now, we do have paddle shifters, and that will allow you to change your recuperation level. And I'm just noticing here on the screen, nothing official, but at 98% state of charge, it's predicting 239 miles on this charge. So here we have the motor cradle for the eSprinter. Now the eSprinter is coming only in rear wheel drive configuration, but two different power outputs. There's a 100 kilowatt power output and then a 150 kilowatt version that equates to like 134 horsepower and then 201 horsepower, and peak torque is 295 pound-feet. Now you can see this cradle basically bolts into the rear end of the vehicle, and you've got your whole subframe here as one with your suspension, your axles, your brakes, all in one relatively compact unit, and this is a permanent magnet motor. A couple other things worth noting about the battery pack. It is liquid cooled, which is just fantastic, and they're targeting a battery warranty of 8 years or 160,000 kilometers. That's about 100,000 miles, but they're also going to offer an extended warranty, 8 years, 300,000 kilometers, which is equivalent to about 187,000 miles. So for those folks out there putting a lot of miles on their van, that could be a really cool option, and that warranty kicks in at 70% of the initial capacity. Now, one aspect of the electric Sprinter which is really important is that the interior dimensions are the same between the gasoline and the electric. And actually the exterior dimensions are pretty similar as well. And that's really important because the body in white, the actual structure doesn't change when you go from gasoline or diesel to electric. And that's important for companies like upfitters, which build the shelving, or if you're building like an overland van, you know, the interiors and the seats and the beds and whatever you will put in here will fit when transitioning from an internal combustion to an electric powertrain. Now the van actually sits a little bit higher, something like 8 centimeters higher than the ICE model, and that's because of course the battery location underneath the van, but the structure itself all remains the same. Now here we have the shorter wheelbase of the eSprinter, and this model is not coming to the US, at least initially, but the interesting thing about this model is because of the shorter wheelbase, it doesn't fit the large 113 kilowatt hour battery, so this one is only available in the 81 kilowatt hour battery, and in Europe they actually have a smaller one too, which is just over 50 kilowatt hours. Now this right here is something really special, and this one will not be available in the US. This is the chassis cab configuration, so this is sold as the cab and the interior and the powertrain, of course, and then a bare chassis. And then you would bring this to an upfitter who would install something like this flatbed. And these are so incredibly useful and so incredibly cool. And I would love if Mercedes brought this to the States. Now, an incredibly important aspect for a fleet customer is serviceability of the eSprinter and how often it will spend time off of the road. And this is going to be a huge advantage going electric over gasoline because there's just simply less to service. There's no oil changes, and the intervals are in theory going to be much longer. Now, nothing official yet, but they're saying they're targeting 40,000 kilometer service intervals with the eSprinter. That's about 25,000 miles or once a year. Now, currently the diesel Sprinter, I do believe, has a oil change interval about 20,000 miles. So in theory, you're going to be able to save money in the long term in service with this eSprinter and bring it into the dealer less. And when it is time to bring it into the dealer, you can monitor all of the service via the ME app or the Me app, which is really cool. And you can even like plan for it, so you know what the brake pad wear is, so that you can plan when the vehicle needs to be off the road to bring it to the dealer for service. So one of the things I find really cool about the eSprinter is that it's built on the same line as the internal combustion models, so both the gasoline and the diesel, which means they have a lot of flexibility in production, whether or not they need to build more internal combustion models or electric models. Now, what that also means is that they have to share a lot in common in terms of mounting points. So when you open up the hood on the eSprinter, you're not going to find a 4-cylinder turbo, either gas or diesel. Instead, you find things like the charger and the inverter. It's all underneath the hood, but it mounts to the same point as the gasoline and the diesel models, which is really pretty cool. Now, the 113 kilowatt hour battery is going to be available in the US first, and that pack weighs right around 850 kilograms, which is just under 1,900 pounds. Now, that will have the effect on that payload capacity, so that's most likely why you see a lower payload on the electric model compared to the internal combustion models. And one other kind of fun fact about the eSprinter is that the charging port is in the front. Typically, you would fill up the internal combustion Sprinter here on the side. Now, the little cubby is still there, but obviously the filler has gone. So the two different motor outputs, the 100 kilowatt and the 150 kilowatt outputs, those are actually the same motor in terms of the hardware. It's actually a software limitation, but It's kind of an interesting idea. Now, Mercedes said that a lot of fleet owners will prefer the 100 kilowatts for like city delivery use because drivers are of course limited on not only performance, but how much energy that smaller output is going to use compared to the 150 peak, and the continuous rating is right around 80 kilowatts. Also, I apologize for the terrible state of my shoes and pants. We had fun off-roading the all-wheel drive Sprinter earlier today, hence the mud. Now, there are still several numbers we don't know related to the electric Sprinter. For example, pricing, which is a really big deal. We don't have the official range rating as well, or the official towing capacity. In Europe, it's rated to tow 1.5 tons, but of course, they have an entirely different rating system here in Europe compared to the USA. But overall, I'm really excited about the electric variant of the Sprinter. I'm excited to see a larger battery pack than the Ford Transit Electric, which is a big deal. Pretty decent charging, and I love that the actual body structure remains the same. So for the outfitters out there, you don't have to change all of your hardware to make it work with the new electric Sprinter. The e-Sprinter will be going on sale later this year, right around the middle of the year, as a 2024 model year. And as always, we'll see you in the next episode.